Yeah, let's go. I'm unstoppable, do the impossible. I'm irresponsible, yet I'm phenomenal. I got an arsenal, I'm dropping bombs, you know. No, I'm not stopping, no. Conquer the obstacle. To the top, here I go, think I'm chosen to be the king of rock, think the people have spoken. I can hear the tick-tock of the clock, I'm in motion. So now I'm gonna pop, causing all this commotion.
Yeah, sometimes I think that I'm unstoppable. Yeah, ready to go, man, lock and load. That's right, I swear to God that I could drop you, bro. Yeah, I got a shot and I ain't stopping, no. That's how I know that I'm unstoppable. That's how I know that I'm unstoppable. Yeah, let's go. I don't care what they all say. That's right, I'ma do this thing my way. Let's go. Been grinding hard on it all day. Okay, we work hard, then we all play. Yeah, I'm addicted to the grind, man. That's right, so I refuse to waste time, man. Yeah, one day it all will be fine, man. Let's go. Gotta commit to the climb, you know, man. We're back with the Guinness, setting records every minute, every track, in addiction to the fact that we're winning. Still we lack, something's missing, need a track that is hitting, making racks, making millions. Yeah, that's the mission. Yeah. I don't waste time, no, I make time. All these people wanna hate, fine, I'ma make mine. While you sitting there complaining, I'll be training. While you sitting there just waiting, I'm creating. Yeah, sometimes I think that I'm unstoppable. Yeah, ready to go, man, lock and load. That's right, I swear to God that I could drop you, bro. Yeah, I got a shot and I ain't stopping, no. That's how I know that I'm unstoppable. That's how I know that I'm unstoppable.
Yeah, let's go. I'm unstoppable, do the impossible. I'm irresponsible, yet I'm phenomenal. I got an arsenal, I'm dropping bombs, you know. No, I'm not stopping, no. Conquer the obstacle. To the top, here I go, think I'm chosen to be the king of rock, think the people have spoken. I can hear the tick-tock of the clock, I'm in motion. So now I'm gonna pop, causing all this commotion.
Yeah, sometimes I think that I'm unstoppable. Yeah, ready to go, man, lock and load. That's right, I swear to God that I could drop you, bro. Yeah, I got a shot and I ain't stopping, no. That's how I know that I'm unstoppable. That's how I know that I'm unstoppable.
Yeah, let's go. I don't care what they all say. That's right, I'ma do this thing my way. Let's go. Been grinding hard on it all day. Okay, we work hard, then we all play. Yeah, I'm addicted to the grind, man. That's right, so I refuse to waste time, man. Yeah,
One day it all will be fine, man. Let's go. Gotta commit to the climb.
You know we're back with the Guinness, setting records every minute, every track. An addiction to the fact that we're winning. Still we lack, something's missing. Need a track that is hitting, making racks, making millions.
Oh, yeah.
If you ask, that's the mission.
I don't waste time, no, I make time. All these people wanna hate, fine, I'ma make mine. While you sitting there complaining, I'll be training. While you sitting there just waiting, I'm creating.
Yeah, sometimes I think that I'm unstoppable. Yeah, ready to go, man, lock and load. That's right, I swear to God that I could drop you, bro. Yeah, I got a shot and I ain't stopping, no. That's how I know that I'm unstoppable. That's how I know that I'm unstoppable.
Yeah, let's go. I'm unstoppable, do the impossible. I'm irresponsible, yet I'm phenomenal. I got an arsenal, I'm dropping bombs, you know. No, I'm not stopping, no. Conquer the obstacle.
To the top, here I go, think I'm chosen to be the king of rock, think the people have spoken. I can hear the tick-tock of the clock, I'm in motion. So now I'm gonna pop, causing all this commotion.
Yeah, sometimes I think that I'm unstoppable. Yeah, ready to go, man, lock and load. That's right, I swear to God that I could drop you, bro. Yeah, I got a shot and I ain't stopping, no. That's how I know that I'm unstoppable. That's how I know that I'm unstoppable.
Yeah, let's go. I don't care what they all say. That's right, I'ma do this thing my way. Let's go. Been grinding hard on it all day. Okay, we work hard, then we all play. Yeah, I'm addicted to the grind, man. That's right, so I refuse to waste time, man. Yeah, one day it all will be fine, man. Let's go. Gotta commit to the climb.
You know we're back with the Guinness, setting records every minute, every track. An addiction to the fact that we're winning. Still we lack, something's missing. Need a track that is hitting, making racks, making millions.
Oh, yeah.
If you ask, that's the mission.
I don't waste time, no, I make time. All these people wanna hate, fine, I'ma make mine. While you sitting there complaining, I'll be training. While you sitting there just waiting, I'm creating.
Yeah, sometimes I think that I'm unstoppable. Yeah, ready to go, man, lock and load. That's right, I swear to God that I could drop you, bro. Yeah, I got a shot and I ain't stopping, no. That's how I know that I'm unstoppable. That's how I know that I'm unstoppable.
Yeah, let's go. I'm unstoppable, do the impossible. I'm irresponsible, yet I'm phenomenal. I got an arsenal, I'm dropping bombs, you know. No, I'm not stopping, no. Conquer the obstacle. To the top, here I go, think I'm chosen to be the king of rock, think the people have spoken. I can hear the tick-tock of the clock, I'm in motion. So now I'm gonna pop, causing all this commotion.
Yeah, sometimes I think that I'm unstoppable. Yeah, ready to go, man, lock and load. That's right, I swear to God that I could drop you, bro. Yeah, I got a shot and I ain't stopping, no. That's how I know that I'm unstoppable. That's how I know that I'm unstoppable.
Yeah, let's go. I don't care what they all say. That's right, I'ma do this thing my way. Let's go. Been grinding hard on it all day. Okay, we work hard, then we all play. Yeah, I'm addicted to the grind, man. That's right, so I refuse to waste time, man. Yeah, one day it all will be fine, man. Let's go. Gotta commit to the climb.
You know we're back with the Guinness, setting records every minute, every track. In addiction to the fact that we're winning, still we lack something's missing. Need a track that is hitting, making racks, making millions. That's the mission.
I don't waste time, no, I make time. All these people wanna hate, fine, I'ma make mine. While you sitting there complaining, I'll be training. While you sitting there just waiting, I'm creating.
Yeah, sometimes I think that I'm unstoppable. Yeah, ready to go, man, lock and load. That's right, I swear to God that I could drop you, bro. Yeah, I got a shot and I ain't stopping, no. That's how I know that I'm unstoppable. That's how I know that I'm unstoppable.
Yeah, let's go. I'm unstoppable.
Lick my ass. I'm going to take a bunch of fake bugs. Always remember to praise Doug. Praise Doug, motherfuckers. Welcome to the first episode of the Optimus Gaming Podcast. With me today I have Miastra, my co-host.
Hello.
And today we are going to go over... Intro's a little bit jumpy. I appreciate that. I'll go ahead and take a look at that later on. Today we're going to go ahead and talk about Bethesda and what all went wrong. Now, for this type of podcast, we have to go over the history of of Bethesda in order to gain a little bit of understanding instead of just moaning and complaining about what's going on. So, to start off with, the company was founded in 1986, right? By Christopher Weaver. Christopher Weaver was actually a pretty smart guy. Master of Science from MIT. Yeah, What was it in Japan and physics?
Yeah, he spoke Japanese and physics, and if I'm not mistaken, one of his first internships was working with the Famicom port. Then that's one of the original things that he did before he piloted Bethesda, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. And I went ahead and pump up the volume, because apparently you're too.
Sorry. No, I was sitting a little bit away from my mic. Is that?
I mean, we'll find out here in a moment. Yeah, not a problem.
Cool.
So overall, Dr. Weaver, as he's known, received a Master of Science degree from MIT. He was the initial Daltrey Scholar in Wesleyan University, where he was a university scholar earning dual masters in Japanese and computer science, as well as this, cast doctoral degree in Japanese and physics. In 98, he wanted to expand the company beyond PC games and into cross-platform multimedia. So at that point, he invited, Robert Altman?
Yes.
To help manage the growing company in 98. Later on, in 99, they both co-founded ZeniMax Media Incorporated.
Yeah, well, I mean, the ZeniMax story is an entirely different one, and that should probably get its own podcast, because there's some Microsoft MS-DOS level shit in that story. It's pretty fascinating, but please continue.
Oh, yeah. So, a fun little fact, right? Bethesda is credited with the creation of the first real physics-based sports simulation, ironically. It was the game Gridiron in 1986 for the Atari ST, Commodore Amiga, and Commodore 64 and 128 models. He's always away from his mic, a bit higher. Okay, give me one moment. I got him pumped up to full volume. Okay, so through continuous achievements, like from Wayne Gretzky's hockey, this is where it kind of teetered a little bit, before EA became the developers that we all love to hate. So EA asked them to use their tech to develop the original John Madden football. So Bethesda, being a leader in pushing boundaries of development in sports and action games such as the Terminator series,
something interesting about the Terminator series that really what they used in their tech development that made that game so groundbreaking at the time was it was near 3D with sprites.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound that impressive now, but if you look at Terminator, you can see how that led to full 3D modeling.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Oh, and you're audible now. Fantastic.
Awesome.
So the company Bethesda, best known for creating the Elder Scrolls RPG series, based on the original programming of Julian LeFay. So the first chapter in this series, entitled The Elder Scrolls Arena, was released in 1994. And so that kind of snowballed into like the whole, Elder Scrolls series that we have now. The game's direct sequels, Dragonfall, released in 1996, Morrowind, released in 2002, Oblivion, released in 2006, and Skyrim, released in 2011, weren't the only chapters in the series, as many people may not know.
Yes, there's a ton of amazing little side stories. Redguard, that was a really, really fun game.
Yeah, Redguard, that was in 98, Battlespire, that was 97, and Travel Shadowkey was in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. Yeah, so, continuing on, during the early years, Bethesda also created titles for others, including EA, but the main one was THQ. Now, I don't know if you remember THQ, but I do, and they were actually pretty damn good.
Well, the thing about THQ was that they were high-end, expensive games at that point in time. So for me, I really was not into them for that point. But that was always the, if I could ever afford, to get 40 pin dim memory instead of this shitty 32, I'll be able to,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. They also developed titles based on the popular movie franchises as well. That's when they started dipping their toes in to, like, cross-platform stuff. Terminator, Star Trek, and Pirates of the Caribbean series.
Yeah, the Pirates of the Caribbean is a little different because that one was developed after a lot of their other game creation for EA and Atari and other companies had already ended, because at that point the other developers were full on publishers and developers, as opposed to doing ad hoc stuff where you'd bring in a smaller company to work for you. Like, for example, for a long period of time, ID Software used Raven Studios to do a lot of their side work, and quit doing that around that time. So I mean, that's a little different when Pirates came out. But sorry.
Yeah, no, not a problem. It's always nice to know of the titles that other people may not have known about, because I didn't even know about Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, I got interested in it because it had the Bethesda publishing title in it, developed or published by such and such, developed by such. So I was interested in it. It's just, it suffered from a lot of movie-based games where they try to reenact the storyline of the movie in the game, and it just doesn't fucking work. And the mediums are completely different. But yeah, no, I mean, Pirates of the Caribbean was a pretty interesting little foray, because it's not your typical Bethesda. You don't expect that. It's kind of like the Madden football. Like, when you think of Bethesda, you don't think of sports games.
Right. When you think of sports games, who is the one developer we all love to hate? EA.
Yeah.
Thing is, it kind of spun off from that when EA decided to ask Bethesda to use its tech to create that.
I mean, but by using their tech, part of what they did is the first couple iterations, so Madden 1, 2, and 3, all use Creation Studio as their game engine. After that is when EA developed its own game engine to run Madden, to run Tiger Woods, to run the Larry Bird basketball, which then later became NBA. It was originally titled Larry Bird, and then the second one was called Michael Jordan, and then eventually they settled on NBA. NBL too. Like, Madden, I think, is the only one of their sports games that still keeps the original buy-in celebrity name attached to it. Just slight EA.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think if we went ahead back in time and retconned the permissions that EA asked for from Bethesda, we wouldn't have to deal with microtransactions now. That's my opinion, though.
See, I honestly want to have an entire podcast about microtransactions, where they came from, how they work, and is it actual gaming commission level material, because I think that it's a little bit more complicated.
Well, I mean, after looking at all the possible revenue options that developers and publishers can have, I think monthly subscriptions are where it's at. If like, okay, so hear me out. Don't make the game $60 freaking dollars. Right? If anything, make it 20 or 25 and be like, hey, look, you can have the baseline bare bones for free. But if you want to be able to experience the full game, $5 a month.
Well, see, here's the thing, and this is where Blizzard, Activision Blizzard now, but Blizzard ran into this issue. They're irrespective of the game title cost. The monthly subscription money will not last long term. And the larger issue is that if you have 10% of your gaming fan base spend any money on the microtransaction store, they will double to quintuple your investment costs and profits. It works out now where 5% of the gaming base that invests in microtransaction pays more than double the rest of the consumer base of the game. So that's part of the reason why games with microtransaction shops don't really listen to anyone, because the only ones they care about are the guys that dump hundreds of dollars every 2 weeks into their microtransaction store. That's just part of why I want to have an entire podcast about microtransactions, because man.
Yeah, we definitely will, because it's microtransactions is one of the things where
I want to know the first game that had microtransactions in it.
What is it?
The Sims 2.
Really?
Yep.
Clarify that.
The Sims 2 had a customized sim shop where you could buy clothing and unique furniture pieces, paid for mods, basically, through the EA online transaction store. Prior to that, you would get, at least on the PC side, it would be the Xbox
for losing a bet to memes off damn Super Bowl.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we actually got a donation. from Mad Odge himself. Said, for losing a bet to memes. Damn Super Bowl. Go ahead, though.
It's just that in that particular game, there was about 12 if I remember correctly, there was 12 to 20 different specific clothing items that you could buy from the Sim store, which is what it was called at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And there was also just hundreds of furniture bits that you, because at that point what they were selling was base building, basically, and that is where the modern microtransaction comes from. It's from The Sims, amusingly enough.
Right? Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, yeah, we're actually going to have to look at the history of that. If it's the first one to have microtransactions, then yeah. So it's we're definitely going to have to go over that. But like with Bethesda, right? Let me go ahead and fix this little thing, because I totally didn't plan on getting a donation. Now I have to fix the name. And it's going to appear small on screen, and I don't want that to happen. But I have no choice, because his name is extremely long.
This is why I said we should do a podcast where you don't pay attention to the chat. Moving on.
Well, no, it's adjusting the name on the screen itself.
Yeah, not a problem.
Yeah. So I mean, now we have that. He is listed as the most recent donator. Awesome.
Very cool.
So yeah, memes ruins everything. So with Bethesda, right? We went over the Elder Scrolls. What other game series is it known for? Fallout, right?
Well, no, not quite.
Fallout 3 is when it started taking over.
Bethesda in 2004 bought out the Fallout franchise because its parent company was going away.
Yeah, the Interplay Productions.
Yeah. But at that point, like, what Bethesda is known for now clearly is Fallout. Like, I'm not lying. Fallout's almost bigger than the Elder Scrolls base.
Right.
I mean, like that's an interesting. Like, they also ended up buying out ID Software as well. So I mean, yeah, I don't quite know the year on that. I think you might have that.
That's 2004 is the Fallout franchise was acquired by Bethesda from Interplay Productions. And the development of Fallout 3 was handed over to Bethesda Game Studios. So, Fallout 3 being released, October 28, 2008, the 5 downloadable content packs for Fallout 3 were released in the year following its release, which was Operation Anchorage, The Pit, Broken Steel, Point Lookout, and Mothership Zeta. Right? So, now, with all those packs, I think, because that's why you see the major disconnect between 1 and 2 and in 3, is because when they finally bought it off, they didn't want to do the
top down,
the top down turn based, yeah. And so they wanted it to be more of a first person shooter with that RPG element that I've come to love on Fallout 3 and New Vegas.
Well, I mean, realistically, the RPG element they brought in, not the same as what you got from Fallout, but it was similar. Because Interplay did a very good job, like Tactics being their creme de la creme of anything they produce. Fallout Tactics is still one of the best games I've ever played, and it's that was released, what 98, 2000?
I believe so.
I'm pulling it from memory, so if I'm incorrect, please don't sue. But the point being, though, is the fact that in Tactics, you can dialogue your way through a lot of situations, and how you build your character really matters, because that determines how you can build your team. Right. If your character sucks, the people you can recruit will suck too, because you didn't bother spending the time or energy in anything other than me, big man, me shoot gun, you die.
So
I've tried playing one of those as the main character in that game, and it works fine as long as you don't mind having an entire squad of super mutants and you're the most intelligent in the squad. Like the Deathclaw won't even join you because you're too mentally inferior, and it's just like, yeah, no, you'll get me killed. That's one of the actual dialogue lines. But Bethesda, part of why they retained the Fallout audience with 3 specifically was because of the depth of RPG element. Because they got very, very close to what an Interplay game was like by a different studio in a different format, and nobody threw a goddamn hissy fit of it. I mean, some of the dyed-in-the-wool Fallout fans did, but most of the Fallout community that I know of, that I personally know of, were highly excited because Interplay at that point in time was planning on going under, and there was not going to be another Fallout. So, I mean, something's better than nothing was the idea at the time.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, because something is better than nothing now. It's just, then now we get Fallout 76, which is a whole nother thing in itself. But in 2010, you know, Obsidian Entertainment's new Fallout title, New Vegas. See, it wasn't completely Bethesda Gaming Studios. It was Obsidian Entertainment. You know.
Well, see, that's the thing. What was left over from Interplay became Obsidian. And they got a licensing agreement with Bethesda to be able to use the Fallout 3 engine and mod the. That's why if you have Fallout 3 installed, New Vegas takes virtually no installation time. All it's loading is basically maps. And a couple of fixes to things like Chinese stealth armor won't let you, truly go invisible. It just adds to stealth now. Shit like that. But the thing about it, though, is that by having Interplay come back, you could actually see the difference there. I mean, Fallout 3 is a great game, but New Vegas is a better version of it. Realistically. I mean, it's the same engine. It's the same basic game material. They haven't really changed anything. The chain, the Gatling laser is the same in both games. They function identically. What matters more than anything is the fact that, who wrote the story and how insanely in-depth the story is.
You know what I get the feeling the difference between 3 and New Vegas is? Is that 3 is more of like the space age feel, while New Vegas is more like the Wild West feel.
That partially has to do with the distributor. It also comes into the fact that in Fallout 1, you play on the West Coast, and it is a total barren waste. In Fallout 2 and Tactics, you play on the East Coast or in Appalachia. And it is a very spacey, techy feel because the buildings and things left over still have that feeling to them. So it is a regional thing that Interplay built into the game built into the game franchise from the.
Right, and I think we kind of lost you there for a moment. Did I
drop?
Yeah, you kind of dropped there for a moment.
I'm sorry. I'm having some connection issues. My bad.
Oh, it's not a problem. But continuing on, 2010 was when New Vegas was published. And Splash Damage's Brink was released on May 2011. Hunted, The Demon's Forge, developed by Inexile Entertainment, was released May 31st, 2011. So, I mean, you have all these games coming out relatively at the same time. And Bethesda's parent company, ZeniMax Media, acquired ID Software, whose titles, including Rage, will be published by Bethesda Softworks. It was later announced that any games using the new ID Tech 5 game engine will be published by them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that gets into more of the complex inner working between ZeniMax and Bethesda. I mean, ZeniMax is technically the parent company. It was started off as the financial wing of the corporation, where Bethesda was the main meat of it, and Zenny was just the marketing wing. And with the interplay drama that happened over ownership of Zenny ended up buying Bethesda, and it ended up becoming the parent company. It's almost a Greek origin story where, the Titans give birth to Zeus and Hades, and they turn around and, kill the Titans and lock them away, that kind of thing. I mean, and that's basically what occurred there. And it's rather interesting because ZeniMax as a corporation is actually pretty clean, which is weird. Like, most corporations add its size in gaming. So you're looking at Ubisoft, you're looking at EA, you're looking at Valve, even though Valve really hasn't produced anything since Half-Life 2, which is what, 2006, 2004, maybe?
I think around that time, yeah.
And so if you look at them and some of the financial scandals and shit they've got into, that's not really what ZeniMax does. Like, ZeniMax's largest sin, I think, is the fact that they run their microtransaction store like human beings are made of money. That's about it. There's not much worse about that. You see what I mean? It's not the same thing as what the 76 discussion we're about to wade into, because you can't discuss Bethesda without bringing up 76 and what's coming in their new games, because they are hard sticking to the fact that everything that is the Starfall and Test 6 elsewhere will be released on the Creation Engine. And wow, I have some thoughts on that. But yeah, no, I mean, Rage, Hunted, the Demon Forge, like those are Hunted, freaking awesome game. Like, you would not think that is a Bethesda title the way it is.
Oh yeah, yeah, I had it for 360. So, speaking of Rage though, like, my prediction for Rage will, come out around May of 2019.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, especially after how 76 bombed. They need to have a successful another title and another IP, or else they're gonna fail. I mean, they're a private company, so there is no stock release that we can look at, like you can for Activision or EA. But it's gotta hurt.
Yeah, and one of the main reasons why I think it's going to be released so early like it is to get them to climb out of the hole that they dug themselves in with 76.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And then to compound on that, I think like Doom Eternal is gonna be out around October, November of this year.
Well, that timing would make sense, because then you'd have a post-tax release game, and then you'd have hey, it's fall, don't you want something for Christmas game? I can see it coming as late as November for that very reason. That they want it to be closer to Christmas, but still far enough away that it's not Christmas if you have enough money to buy multiple things.
Yeah,
yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, but because I think Doom Eternal is going to be out around October, November, with it being the third most popular Bethesda franchise after, the Elder Scrolls and Fallout, we won't be getting Starfield this year, because there won't be a point to release 2 hyped games in the same period.
Well, see, I'm of a differing mind here. I don't think Starfall is going to come. I really don't think that they're going to start a new IP at all.
Starfield.
Sorry, Starfield, not Starfall. Oops. But yeah, I don't think that they're going to start a new IP. Like there hasn't been any of the advanced marketing that there should be for a whole new IP wing in typical Bethesda fashion. There should be sneak peeks. There should be teaser information at this point already.
Well, see, I think we're going to get Starfield, but it won't be until November of 2020. Bethesda Game Studios will, have to struggle with a lot of problems that year because the next-gen consoles will probably be out during Christmas. Starfield will be also ported to old-gen consoles like GTA 5 in 2013.
Oh, yeah.
Most of the people will have the PS4 and the Xbone One by that time. So, additional year of development, games in the making since Fallout 4 released in 2015 is necessary, because releasing a game to 5 different platforms would not be cost beneficial. So that's why they ported it over.
Mm-hmm.
And then, go ahead.
No. I was just gonna button that up with the fact that even if the next gen consoles aren't going to be released till 2021, 2022. The PS4 is starting to show its age. The same with the Xbox One. They're both 32-bit processing cores. You can't get around that. Where everything on the PC side 64-bit.
Mm-hmm.
And again, both of those systems, even the re-release of the Xbox One can't incorporate DDR4 because there's 32-bit machines.
Right.
So and the coding difference between a 64-bit machine and a 32 one is part of the issue. Like the 64 can emulate a 32, but it will run into logic fault errors because it's not processing, it's not carrying over the extra digits properly because it's computing it wrong. Mm-hmm. And it's like there was some really amazing and disturbing bugs that occurred. If you look at like Morrowind, for example, Morrowind was written for a 16-bit OS. Okay, so like that's your standard pre-Windows XP machine. So anything Windows 2000-ish in time. When they ported it over to Win XP, which is a full 32-bit machine, there was all kinds of crap where you had to go into the administrator settings to have it hard emulated at 16-bit. And even then, it would still fuck up from time to time, just based off the fact that you're running through a completely different kernel system.
Right. I mean, that's just some of the problems that they're going to be facing. But the thing is, they're going to try and make it work anyway.
No, well, obviously. I mean, I don't think that they would have ripped people off for Fallout Darkrum the way they did if they didn't think it was going to be a success.
Right. And then we have like the Elder Scrolls 6.
Elsewhere, yes. I am very worried about Elsewhere. Very worried.
I'm thinking November of 2022.
Maybe. They've already teased it, and I would expect it before Starfield.
Well, see here. Okay, so here's the reason why I think it's going to be Starfield before TES 6, right? So the thing is, after the backlash for Fallout 76, right? And we know that there's backlash going on, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. So what they're going to do is they're going to do Rage 2, climb themselves out of the hole. Then they're going to do Doom Eternal to try and get that little boost. Then they're going to test the waters, hopefully, hoping that everyone forgot about their mess-ups, for Fallout 76 with Starfield in 2020. Now, what'll happen is they're going to get released, it's like, I don't know if I should buy this game because, they did such a bad job with 76. It's like, do we even want to trust a company more, right? Because when you blatantly go against your player base like that, you're going to lose customers. Bottom line.
Yeah.
And so And so what'll happen is the reason why I think it's going to be in 2022 is because they actually probably want to get back to what they were doing into. So this is going to take an extremely long time because we want to make it right, not release a half-assed version of, the Elder Scrolls like we did with 76 and trying to get into good graces again. And hopefully they learn their lesson this time by staying out of SJW type stuff.
See, I think that might happen if they get rid of Todd Howard. I could see that occur. There's a couple problems that I foresee with your prediction.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, Rage is an ID Software Studios product, which ID Software is owned by ZeniMax, which is a sister corporation to Bethesda.
It's the parent.
So what?
It's the parent corp.
Parent corp ZeniMax, not Bethesda.
Right. You said ZeniMax, and you said it was a sister company. It's the parent company.
Well, no, I'm sorry. ID Softworks. Let me rephrase. ID Softworks is a sister company to Bethesda.
Okay. Yeah.
That didn't come out outright. So, what would happen is more than likely if they released Rage that way without anything coming out from Bethesda, the other game studios might do a great job because there's 3 or 4 under ZeniMax at this point in time. Mm-hmm. And Bethesda might just atrophy and wither and die. Like that's a damn good chance, especially under Todd Howard's leadership. Like that man is delusional at this point.
Right.
I hear our games have some bugs. Yes, they do. They also have a modding core. Oh wait, you charge for those now. Never mind.
Yeah. And for that type of stuff is like Bethesda, we would buy the games, bugs and all, just because we knew the game would be worth playing.
Oh yeah.
We the storyline, jumping right into it, it's like, you know what, we can tolerate these bugs. Bethesda made the mistake of wanting to call them features instead and be like, ho, well, we're known for the bug niche, and the thing is, when you come out with more and more games that isn't really different or unique and are really starting to get lackluster, that's when people aren't going to tolerate the bugs anymore because it's like Fallout 76. Where's the story? Well,
that is a 2 separate arguments that you're making there that are bound together by a semicolon. Mm-hmm. They're not quite the same. As far as the bug situation goes, the general the general Bethesda community tolerated and even kind of giggled at the bugs because you could mod them. Where things started going sour as far as their bugs were concerned was when they released the Creators Club, which is where you would have to pay for the unofficial patch. That costs $5. Why the fuck won't you patch your goddamn game? Why do I have to pay $5 for a patch that fixes your game?
Well, so the problem isn't where, like other players modded it to fix it, right? Mm-hmm. The problem is when they decided to take those mods and decide to monetize it for their own gain.
Absolutely. That's when I stopped modding Bethesda products, period. I saw my code in a paid-for overhaul pack, and I didn't even get a mention. And it's my code directly because it has my buried in code tag to let me know where I'm at in that particular code, and also to mention that I'm there.
Right.
They left it in. It was a direct copy pasta of it.
Yeah. So. Sorry about that. No,
I was just saying, from personal anecdotal experience, this is why I rage quit their modding community, because realistically, the mod pack that my mods are in, it's a $15 mod.
Yeah, and the reason
that's the price of DLC.
Yeah. And so the reason why, players would mod is because they wanted to. They had ideas about the storyline, right? And it's like, I can't achieve the rest of the storyline because of this certain bug, or as Bethesda wants to look at it, quote-unquote feature. And so they created the mod, or the little bug fix so that way they could get past and experience the rest of the storyline. Well, what happens when a company decides to release games that have a lackluster storyline?
Well, I mean, that's what I meant by that's two separate arguments.
Right.
Because when you take what happened with the Creation Club, okay, and the fact that the modders pretty much stopped working because they were tired of not getting paid. Obviously, some modders are getting paid. Why am I not getting paid? Which is the exact argument that I just presented a minute and a half ago.
Oh, yeah.
Now then you take that and you take a game like 76, which is an online multiplayer PvP game, and you cannot be modded, supposedly. It can because of technical issues on their part, like storing client information instead of on server side like it's supposed to be. It's on the individual PC, so you can mod the actual game files because you have access to that. Not that I've done that, but you can do that. Well,
I mean that you can't add mods to it, but you can access the super secret room to access all the weapons, right?
Well, no, see that's the dev room that they built in. That's already in the game. No, you can actually go in and just mod the INI files directly, like old school original Warcraft 2 modding, where you just go into the direct game files and change, functionality. Like, for example, the problems like getting, by having this be a massively multiplayer online game. It's not technically massively multiplayer, but that's its bracket. What you end up having, especially with it not being modded, all the bugs are there for everyone to see. Now, if you also count in the fact that I can mod things myself to fix bugs from Daggerfall because this game engine is older than my children, I mean, the actual FPS bug in the game, right now, currently, because they can't fucking fix it, because it's hard-coded into the actual physics engine that they use. When you stare at the ground, what happens is the texture for the ground becomes hyper detailed, as opposed to low-res, it jumps to high-res. So when you do that, it ramps up the amount of processing. If you run along the ground while doing so, it will continuously try to load that ground texture, which will cause the game engine to slip over and start ramping up your frames per second. So if you can only shoot twice a second, if you run along and stare at the ground for 5 seconds, you can shoot 8 times because you broke the game engine. This works in a PvP game. What?
Right.
Well, that's a huge problem. But yeah, no, I don't see anything wrong with those two statements at all. It's just that they are distinct, separate problems. And they're combining issues. Well, sorry, compounding issues is the better way to put it. I mean, if Bethesda, this isn't a ZeniMax thing because no other game studio under ZeniMax has done this, but Bethesda. If Bethesda hadn't created the Creation Club, all the modders would, like myself, would probably still. The whole reason why I fixed the College of Winterhold 4 quest line was because I wanted to do all the goddamn quests in that. So I sat down and I spent about 3 hours debugging their code to get those 4 quests to work. And if I could do it, Bethesda could fucking do it. And if they're charging money for this shit, fuck off. Like, You're charging money for patch notes? Excuse me?
That they didn't even create.
Yeah, well, and that's the compounding issue with the fact that Fallout 76 has no story. Fallout 76, you're supposed to make the storyline with your friend. Fallout 76 requires that your friends play the game. What?
I think they would have done better if they made it initially single player but had the multiplayer option. Sort of like what are the other games that I got my Steam logged out, so I can't really check.
Online is a prime example of that. You can play in single player mode or you can play in multiplayer mode. You don't have to play with other human beings. That's a prime example of what you're talking about. Those are two separate loads with two separate characters, by the way. You know, you can't take a character from single player and port it over into multiplayer. You can't take a multiplayer character and move it over into single player. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
And if they just done that alone, it would probably work a lot better, realistically. But you'd need NPCs. You'd need quest givers. You'd need things to interact with in the game world other than a whole bunch of shit that wants.
Yeah, and speaking of like the game world, right? Like say for Skyrim, right? Bethesda decided that no content should ever be locked away from the player. You know, with Skyrim. So the team worked hard to create a world from nothing. They spent time writing quests and characters. They obsess over small visual and auditory details. So then why would they work so hard, you know, to create pieces of content the player might never access? So then, you know, then of course this means that the player can do everything. So individual choices don't matter. You know, Skyrim got rid of the skill tagging system from the previous Elder Scrolls and even Fallout 3 and New Vegas. You know, like Fallout 4, you didn't have to tag anymore. So like that in Skyrim, a player can still specialize, but there isn't much incentive to do so. You know, the skills still raise at the same pace the skill as, you know, as a player had never touched. You know, nothing de-incentivizes a player from maxing out all the skills Skyrim and Fallout 4 has to offer. In fact, in the late game, that's the most efficient way to level up overall, without making, you know, skills legendary in Skyrim and resetting them. After a while, all player characters in Skyrim and Fallout 4 feel the same. They can do everything well. This makes the player feel less unique, like building their own character isn't important.
Have you ever played Daggerfall?
I don't think so, honestly.
You can do that in Daggerfall. You can do that in Morrowind. You can do that in Redguard. You can do that.
Oblivion. I think Oblivion was the latest that they could do it. After that, it all went downhill.
No, I'm quite serious. In all of the major titles, and at least the two side titles I played, being Redguard and Lilac Bay, you can max every skill. The major difference and umbrage that I have with Skyrim is, unlike the previous games, the racial bonuses were hard-coded into your skill tree. So if you're a Bosmer, for example, Wood Elf, you get plus 15 to Arch by default. Typically, then, again, one of my mods changes it back to the original method. You would get plus 15 to your skill as a bonus. The way Skyrim implemented it is you just got 15 extra points in that skill. And I think you're onto something, I really do. But every test game allows you to be an absolute god at everything if you spend enough time. That's how you can spend 1,200 hours on a single fucking character.
Right, but when they make that the norm, though, it okay. Say you're like playing D&D, right? You know, and you're going max level 20. You're not going to be able to specialize in every skill or every spell or every, you know, like even if you dual class it, right? You're still not going to be able to specialize in everything. So, I mean, it allows you to build up the backstory of that character, as well as really feel immersed into it. When you start to make it the norm of specialize in everything, then it's like, you know, you're basically saying, oh, well, now all the characters are the same. The only difference is what weapon you choose.
Yeah, no, I get your point. I mean, as far as D&D goes, Wizard Sorcerer. Wizard Bar covered. And you can do that dual classing, but the issue you run into is the level 20 cap. Excluding that particular little moment, the main thing that you run into with Bethesda RPG, and this is pretty much across the board, Fallout included, because Fallout 3, you could push everything to max. You get the bobbleheads, you get the frickin' skill comic books or whatever, and you can push everything to max. Part of what it is your character isn't special or of special origin at the beginning. What makes you special is all the things you've done in the story world. So in Oblivion, for example, if you close all 85 Oblivion gates, that's a pretty huge achievement. You probably unlocked a great number of skills. You know, by getting to the end of the Dark Brotherhood quest line in Oblivion and Mar, it takes a good 15, 20 hours to get through, assuming that you haven't already fast travel unlocked every possible location you need to go. I mean, just riding and running there will take a great deal of time, along with the escort moments in the quest where you have to follow some idiot as they talk. Now, that makes it more interactive and more realistic as far as the game world goes, because the quest giver is walking there and giving you dialogue and telling you this and that. You need to pay attention to what he has to say. You know, because, you know, if you kill the red slime, then everything fails out of that pack of slime that's attacking you. And I don't necessarily see anything wrong about playing epic characters. Again, getting back to D&D, if you focus exclusively on the main storyline, you'll be levels. Doing all the optional side quest shit takes you to epic level. See what I mean?
Yeah, I can see that. And if you choose, like, okay, so if you choose to do the side quests, you know, and then gain those levels, that's fine. But when you essentially make everything a whole lot easier, like say in Skyrim and Fallout 4, you know, then it becomes like a mundane experience. You know, and then there's the matter of what happens when you reach the end of those quests, or you're exploring and you reach the end of that, you know, specific dungeon. You know, there's that loot fatigue.
Yeah, there's definitely loot fatigue. I mean, there's like a freaking quest. There's a chest in every little cave.
Dungeon, the outpost.
Yeah, everywhere in Skyrim and in Fallout. Well, I mean, part of what made Morrowind and Oblivion engaging is you could spend a good mucking through a cave where you're killing goblins and shit, and you get to the end, and if you're lucky, the shaman boss at the end might have a magic scepter thing.
Yeah,
oh wait, there's nothing this time. There was just a bunch of trash goblins, and you spent all this time sneaking around for no. I mean, like that. The thing is that too many players in the fan base wrote and bitched at Bethesda about the fact that there wasn't an RNG loot given. Which I don't. I really, really hate the RNG that you run into. I mean, what makes your gear good in the test games and in Fallout is making it yourself. That's where you get the custom. You know, that's where you get to customize it. That's where you get to have the specific enchants for your character. That's part of why the Radiant leveled items were, in my opinion, so overly weak in Skyrim. Especially like the Thief set, the Nightingale set, the Nocturnal set, that was absolutely underpowered. And the highest it gets is, I think, level 20, and the game goes up to level 85, 86. So
right.
What?
Yeah. But like back to like the loot fatigue, right?
Yeah.
So you want to, you know, when creating a game, you want to give the players a reason to reward a player for adventuring through a location, right? I get that. In the past, Bethesda's incentives were quests and the intense allure of the unknown. In games prior to Skyrim, you never knew what would be behind a door. You know, while Skyrim, you could take a pretty good guess. You know, you'd work your way through, probably get to a Dragear boss, then grab a chest of randomized loot. You know, and Bethesda, they took the criticisms of the Elder Scrolls, you know, Oblivion's cut and paste feeling dungeons seriously. You know, so dungeons were largely predictable and devoid of mystery. Like, you essentially knew what you were getting into when you entered something. It's like, oh, look, I recognize that turn from the last 5 dungeons I went through. You know, like discovering a location in Oblivion or Fallout 3 was genuinely exciting. Like, you're like, oh, crap, I didn't know this was here. Let me explore it. You know, you didn't...
Yeah, excluding the Oblivion gates, because those were almost exactly the same every fucking time.
Yeah, but I mean, it was an achievement to close all 85 of them.
Well, yeah, I'm aware. I got gate fatigue very quickly in Oblivion, and I could close probably a good 5 or 10 of them, and then I'd have to run off and go do quests for the Fighters Guild or something because I was losing my damn mind.
Right.
Because they're almost exactly the same in every version. Yeah, I mean, Skyrim did get that right. Each cave system, each dungeon system you go into, while it might look the same because it has similar architecture, which fair enough, is the fact that they're all uniquely built. They're all different. None of them use the radiant system from Daggerfall for creation, so you're never going to run into the same, oh, here's the stairway doors, so therefore I turn right, because if I go left, I'll just spend an hour and a half going around in a circle.
Right.
Yeah, I mean...
And the thing is, like, you didn't know what you would be in a building out in a capital wasteland. You know, a shack could have a new quest, an Easter egg, or a secret entrance to vault. You know, terminals or notes with lore. You know, when the storyline was good. You know, or even an unmarked quest with hidden loot. You know, or, you know, Doug forbid, absolutely nothing. Aside from slightly interactable set dressing. There's a chance that it was just a destroyed building to explore, you know, perhaps with some skeletons laid out in a certain way to tell a mini-story. It gave the sense of scale and reality of the world, like it was a place that existed that you were picking over the remains.
Yeah. Yeah, it really freaking did. Like, one of the things I loved is you come out of the vault in Fallout 3, and one of the first locations you run into is the old... And I went in there and died 6 times. I got done with it, and all there were was burnt books. I'm like, what?
Oh, that must have sucked.
I was pissed. I was pissed because I was in there to do the side quest for the fucking jet hook instead of just shooting her in the face. And finally, I just reloaded from the autosave of leaving the vault, ran up, blew her goddamn brains out, looted the place, and left. I was like, fuck it, I'm not getting your item back from the Raiders, bitch. Fuck
right. Fallout 4, each building is guaranteed to have 5 stim packs and at least a chest. You know, it's dull and repetitive and makes the experience more like a game and lessens that feeling of being an explorer.
Yeah. That's the thing that I loved in Skyrim that they did right. The map is so fucking huge that even with a max character, you can still play Christopher Columbus and go out exploring. I mean, in all the good and bad, because if you run into the Falmer, you're definitely going to be Christopher Columbus with that shit.
Oh, yeah. I remember running into the Falmer, and like, my first time playing it, right? I run into the Falmer, and I was like, what the hell? What is a Nosferatu doing here? And then they shot arrows at me, and I was like, shit. Run.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if you put your light out or not, like it does with goblins, because the fucking Falmer can hear you.
Yeah.
So it just hurts you. Yeah, I know. And like that's the... I didn't mind so much that I'd maxed out all my skills, cleaned every location, you know, and I never really got into Fallout 4. Like I played it for about an hour or so with my brother, and it was just, it felt like it was a really cheap knockoff of a high-end like Gucci bag. Like, it looks the same, but, you know, that stitching kind of sucks. And if you open that bag up the whole way, the leather starts to crack, you know? Like, that kind of feeling. It's just like, this isn't what is this? The last two get, it's got base building. You know, I mean, I don't know. Like, I never really got deep into Fallout 4. So in this regard, you probably have a great deal more knowledge than I do.
Oh, yeah. It got to a point where I had to lighten my load because I was carrying like 300 stim packs and I was still encumbered.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so I mean, it was pretty difficult because, you know, it's when you play a game like that, you go into hoarder mentality, like, you know, you never know when you're going to have to use a stim pack on a run because, enemies. And then it turns out that you've side quested for so long, you're like God mode compared to them when you finally meet up on a main storyline. And then you realize, oh shit, I don't need these Stimpaks at all.
Yeah. Well, see, that was one of the things that I really liked about the Bethesda presentation. They actually threw in trash loot. Like that, I was actually really kind of annoyed when they brought in actual items, not the crafted, junk launcher, because that was adorable in my opinion. So that way you can just pick up all those books and use them as ammo.
Oh, yeah. I used to shoot teddy bears.
Nice.
Yeah, it was awesome. And they'd actually do damage, too.
What?
Yeah.
Death by plushie.
Yeah, death by Snoo teddy bear.
Yeah. The thing that got me, though, is like 76, there's now deconstruction recipe. So every single thing, every junk item in the game is now used. Let that sink in. Like, all those books, you can dissolve those.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, you can dissolve all of them, and most likely you're going to create mods for your weapon. All of a sudden you turn a makeshift pistol into a god weapon.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, you need to loot every single typewriter for their spring.
Give me those springs. I need to build a goddamn settlement.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Man, one of the most amusing bugs, as just a quick aside from the main storyline of the podcast, one of the most amusing bugs that they've implemented is in the new hotfix with their rollback to a 6-week-old version of the game. Good fix, by the way. They somehow fucked it up, and bobby pins now weigh a pound each. Yeah.
Wait, wasn't it like 0.6 instead of 0.06? I think I read that somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm being hyperbolic a little bit, but yeah, no, I mean, I could not get through either Fallout or Skyrim without having hundreds, if not thousands, of bobby pins or lockpicks. Because you just pick up so goddamn many of them, they don't weigh a damn thing.
Right.
And then to have your entire inventory just swap over, where it's like half a for a bobby pin. What? That's nutty. I mean, still, 2 bobby pins at an ounce is ridiculous. Like, what are you doing? Yeah, but still.
Yeah, but I mean, like, when it comes into the reference of, like, the actual world that you're exploring, you got the term dynamic, right?
Oh, God.
And that is thrown around carelessly.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, realistically speaking, it's Bethesda's strongest selling point, right?
Yep.
Dynamic
lighting, dynamic weather, dynamic environments. Oh, yeah.
But with each release having the most dynamic world, quote unquote, they've ever created is less and less true. Bethesda has been steadily paring back complexity in their games and their game worlds.
Well, Fallout 3 was absolutely one of their most dynamic games because it had weather.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It had genuine weather that affected the environment. Oblivion had weather-ish, but it didn't have weather. Skyrim had full weather, but that comes after Fallout 3. Now, Fallout 76, I don't see how it's more dynamic. It's the same creation engine. And in that same, you can only push something from 1994, 1996 so hard before it says, yeah, no, I'm done.
Right. But don't get me wrong, though. I mean, each game world that Bethesda makes is increasingly, more beautiful with more and more varied locations. But there's also a downside. It's like everything that fills up those worlds and locations is less and less engaging.
Yeah.
Think about Oblivion, for example. It's Radiant's AI system that attempted to give every single NPC a unique personality based on stats.
Oh, God, yeah, I love
that. When they had conversations with each other and had little funny little interactions?
Yeah, like when the AI glitches and someone tries to shank somebody else for no reason, but they fucked up their dialogue in between each other.
Oh yeah, and it's not even that. Like they would be sitting down at the tavern or something, and be like, "Hey, let me dick punch your fart box," and she says, "Okay," and she walks off, and he still stays there.
Yeah, yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah, no. But I mean, that was the thing though. Like the actual NPC interaction that existed in Oblivion. I mean, like one of the things that I really, really loved was that there were no essential NPCs. Period. Like the only one that existed was the Emperor, and he gets killed off by another essential NPC until like the Emperor's dead. Like that whole thing's scripted. But you can kill anyone just because you decide to swing the sword at them. So it made you be more careful. It made you work harder. I mean, you could watch NPCs fight. You could watch NPCs argue. You could watch NPCs trying to use that ridiculous chat system with the gear wheel at the top, you know,
Oh yeah.
on each other, and they'd actually piss each other off, or they'd become friends, even if they're enemies. I really liked what they had there, and I don't understand why they did it away, because like the radiant system was gone by the time Skyrim came around, and that's what everyone does this every morning. You know, Fenril, the elf in the starting town right outside of Helgnet, that you run to, comes out of his little shack and goes over to the wood chopping area and sits there and chops wood until it's dusk, and then he goes back home.
Yeah, and to kind of play in that, they wouldn't just stand in one place and wait for you to interact with them. You know, if they wasn't in their house like you expected, you find them outside carrying on about their day. You know, they'd walk to a store, converse with with each other in more than repeated scripted exchanges. And it gave the feeling that the world was actually alive, whether the player was there or not. I know that most of the times I would actually sit there, and this completely ruined my recordings for like videos and stuff. But I would sit there and watch for like a minimum of a half an hour to see what kind of interactions they would have, just because there was a ton of them.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I know exactly what you mean. That's why I was laughing, because there's a good number of times where I just leave the game open and just start, watching the game interplay, because I'm in Cyrodiil, in the actual capital city, and I'm just watching the people interact and the conversations that they have. And yeah, about a half hour is when things started to loop. It's a long time for things to just randomly occur. Yeah, and it was fairly random.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, so there was one time where I left the situation open for like 45 minutes. Turns out that 5 minutes into it, one of the characters left and came back and continued the conversation as if they never left. And then pretty soon it started, starting like, Alexa, like they started saying some weird stuff, and I was like, hold on, are they going to break the fourth wall and like say my name in the game or something?
Oh, wouldn't that be weird?
That would be weird.
Wait. This is my medieval sim. What are you doing? Am I within my own simulator? What's going on here? This is not okay.
Yeah, now compare that to Fallout 4, right? NPCs stand in the same 4x4 area they're always in. Never saying or doing anything interesting. If it's night, they might be sleeping, but that's about it. The NPCs in Fallout 4, aside from the recruitable companions, aren't even up for conversations with the player in most cases. They don't even have the dialogue if the player wants to know more about them, or about their city, or some part of the world. Think of the mayor of Diamond City, right?
Right.
Once his part in the main quest is over, what does he do? He just stands there in his office forever. You can't talk to him. He has nothing. And he's probably marked as essential, so you can't even kill him.
Oh, it hurts. It hurts.
You know, that's basically the characterization of most NPCs in the game. Fallout 4, you got the charisma stat, and any speech perks are next to useless, mainly allowing you to extort more caps from quest givers. But it's not the...
So you're playing neutral at that point, huh? You're just like, oh, I'll pick the neutral option. Pay me.
Right, yeah. And so, but it's not hard to make money at all in the game. So, I mean, the speech checks really have no point. This isn't Fallout New Vegas where you can play the whole game without killing anyone using speech.
Yeah, see, that was one of the things I really loved in V, was the fact that I made an entire character that was charisma based, and I wanted to see how far I could. And the next thing I know, I'm at the final pick moment, and it's like, what? My gun skill is like 10. What's happening here? I don't even like the highest weapon skill I had. I think was small arms. I was pushing it around 30, 40, just because I was sinking points into it.
Right.
I am in the wasteland.
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, overall, right? Bethesda's most recent 2 games have been half-baked at best. The gameplay loops and systems totally gutted. And what's the trade-off? The game worlds are bigger. Ooh, so what? If the gameplay in those worlds aren't fleshed out all the way, it doesn't matter how big the world gets. Bethesda already learned this from their first Elder Scrolls, the Elder Scrolls Arena, was absolutely massive, where Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim focused on one part of the world of Tamriel, and while Arena included all of it. But it didn't matter. The locations in Game World were procedurally generated, so everything looked exactly the same. A bigger world does not equal a more engaging one.
Very true. Very true. I mean, you are right about Arena. I will give Arena a lot more leeway, considering the fact that it was made on an 8-bit system and ported to a 16-bit one. I mean, that's pretty old. Like they tried. They really did try, and it was worth, letting that slide. When you get into things like what they've done in 76, I mean, 24 players on a map 4 times bigger than Fallout.
Yeah.
4, it's 6 times bigger than Fallout 3, which is the one I'm familiar with. Fallout 3 is a huge map. And you're going to have 24 people roaming around in that, and that's your sole interaction. What? How's that going to work?
Yeah, exactly. And, the thing is, like what I was saying earlier, right? When in regards to Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, before we actually started the podcast, with Fallout 4, I spent quite a bit of time playing it, right? And the more I think about it, it more gives evidence, to the idea that Fallout 4 was just a prototype for Fallout 76. The simple combat-focused quest and mechanics, it just works building system.
Yeah.
I
thought, I don't know if it was a rumor or not, but I could have sworn that they were toying around with the idea of making Fallout 4 multiplayer. I don't know about that.
Well, okay, so the thing is, like, they had the thought, right? They had the thought of adding multiplayer to Fallout 4, but it didn't get any traction.
Oh, okay.
And so, because it didn't get traction, they didn't implement it. But then all of a sudden, after Fallout 4 came out, people wanted multiplayer, right? It's kind of like a catch-22. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Then Fallout 76 comes by, and while, the thing is, you're trying to incorporate multiplayer, which is live action, to single player, which if you hit escape, it can be paused.
Yeah.
Now you have all these actions that you have to do inside the game that requires you to look at your, Pit-Boy or something. And the thing is, the world doesn't stop around you. So you could be getting shot. You check your Pip-Boy because you think it'll just pause it, and next thing you know, you're dead.
Ouch. Yeah, that's one of the things that I liked, was that you could use the bat system or popping open inventory as a pause mechanic. And I don't understand why they even bothered putting bats into 76.
Well, the thing is, like, okay, so I don't know how they did this, but with the VAT system in 76, like it kind of slowed down the world a little for you, but I don't know how they correlated it between like each person. You know, so I mean, it's kind of like a catch-22 there as well. Like you enter the VAT system, and it would slow down a game a little bit for you, but not much. You know, and then they would list the percentages, but the thing is, you still had to act as quickly because guess what? The world doesn't stop.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're spending most of your time hip firing while running because someone's trying to take shots at you, or you know you're ducking, dodging, and diving while shooting.
Yeah, I mean, that the whole reason why bats was even put into Fallout 3 to begin with was to appease the turn-based crowd. Like that's why it was there. So that and as far as the percentages go, that there's a whole like meta mini game in Fallout 3 where it's not actually a game, but if you don't have a high enough percentage, just tap bats repeatedly, and the percentage will go up or down as it moves around. And then just
well, I mean, they kind of yes and no. They kind of did away with that. The percentages is based on the distance between your character and that enemy. So the closer it is, the higher chance you're going to have. I think, what was it, 1 and 2, you had it to where you just go into VATS multiple times and it does randomized percentages. And you can keep doing that until you get a decent shot. But 3 is where they cut that off. Did I lose you?
Well, no, you didn't. I'm thinking about it because in 1, 2, and tactics, there isn't really a VAT system. There's an outright pause, and then there's turn-based mode and real-time mode that you can turn on and off. The VAT system in 3, it's not only distance, but it's also line of sight is part of it in its calculation. So death claws, for example, if you wanna trank dart both legs, so that way you can just back up and drop the useless frag in front of them, which is my preferred way of killing them.
Yeah.
You just keep tapping bats until the leg you want to shoot is not only directly in your line of sight, but close enough to you to give you the percentage that you want.
Right.
Sorry, I wasn't trying to be overly dead airish. I had to think for a minute because I haven't played Fallout 1 in 20 years.
And you know what? I might actually record some like Fallout 1 action and post up as a video, Do some nice little transitions and stuff. Just for like the nostalgia feeling.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I really want to sit down and have a multiplayer tactics. Like just sit down and play some tactics. Because tactics is really, I think, the best that Interplay came out with. It is still story and function wise one of my favorite top down 3D games.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really enjoy it, and only with some of the brand new 64-bit engines can they make 3D landscapes look enough for me not to care. Inquisitor, for example, is the one that comes to mind there. Because if you zoom in on Inquisitor, the detail orientation is insane. Like, I do not understand why a Diablo clone would have that much detail, but it looks good. Games Workshop, thank you.
Right.
But no, I mean that would be a fun little side project. We need to have our Dawn of War playoff though first because I'm itching.
Oh yeah. You want to go against me in Dawn of War, huh?
Sure. It's Command and Conquer, but better. I'm down. That's just awesome. But we're stepping a little far afield from Bethesda, so
let's kind of rein it back to my thing that I like to rant most about: Radiant quests.
Ooh. Go get me. Fetch,
Yeah,
fetch.
yeah, that's essentially what it is. You know, it was a prominent feature from Skyrim where quests are randomly generated, and it became prominent in Fallout 4, right? So a settlement needs your help. While these quests were infrequent in Skyrim unless the player sought them out, they usually provided by a faction. In Fallout 4, these, you know, boring, simple fetch or, you know, kill X quests are required to progress in the game. Not only that, but the game actively harasses you to complete them even when they're not required.
Oh, they put a knob here.
Hey, listen. The game does this so much, and it starts so early on in the game that Bethesda devoted an entire character to the task of never leaving you alone, spamming you with the same quests, never ever stopping. Preston Harvey became a meme the moment the game was released, dude.
Oh. Damn.
Like, okay, so don't get me wrong. In the beginning, I loved Fallout 4, right? Because it was different. You know, it was something to be explored. But the more and more I played it, I kept seeing these things that actually really leave a bad impression. The game's others quests, you know, the ones actually written by real people, supposedly, aren't much better. All quests in Fallout 4 require the player to go to a location cleared of enemies. Sometimes you find an item conveniently located in or near the end of a dungeon, near the loot chest. You know? So...
Yeah. That was one of the things they started in Skyrim that drove me insane. The fact that every quest item that you needed was right near the lever you have to open up that freaking that cave to take the quick exit out, but you've been exploring it all the way to the end and you got to kill the cave boss to get it. I can just imagine that the way Bethesda's gone, they stepped that up a notch or two from the way you're explaining it. That's oh god.
Yeah, I mean quests with branching paths and choices, gone. Meaningful skill and speech checks that made characters' quests and choices matter? Well, you can write that out of there. You know, in Fallout 4, every player does almost every quest the exact same way. It just depends what weapon they use. You know, do you know how hard it is to find interesting quests in Fallout 4?
From the way you're describing it, I bet you it's pretty few and far between.
It's only a handful. You know, and they're hidden so deeply in strange locations that average players probably won't end up finding them unless they discover every location on the map.
Yeah.
You know, quests with funny stories or objectives that involve more of finding an item or clearing a dungeon are so far and few between. Like the Far Harbor expansion, right? For Fallout 4. They did add some quests with a few different paths and outcomes, but the base game sorely misses any kind of quest variety.
See, that sounds like Operation Anchorage, which is one of the DLCs for Fallout 3. It got a lot of flack for that because it was completely fixed. And the only reason at the time that the Bethesda game community accepted was because you're in a you're experiencing history through a simulation, so you can't change it.
Right.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, it turned into your standard, you know, Half-Life 2, what's another comparison? Half-Life 2, Doomish kind of thing, where you have a gun and kill everything from point A to point B, load next checkpoint. And Jesus, if they actually turn the whole game into that, what the fuck? Because Fallout New Vegas in V was so rich in its story choice. I played through it from start to finish 12 times. I've yet to replay the same character. I mean, the final ending's kind of fixed. It's sort of like the end of Fallout 3, where no matter what, the giant robot's going to go destroy shit.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you're stuck with that. And that's fine. You know, I mean, it's similar to like Mass Effect, where at the end of Mass Effect 2, you have to drop the asteroid on the colony. You can't get around it. All 5 choices lead you to that decision. You know, and fair enough. Like there are certain times in storytelling where you have to make this choice no matter what you want to do. And as long as you can justify that honestly, I'll ignore it. Like, it won't bother me because I have to do this because this is what's going to set up the next game the next expansion, the next zone. But to turn the entire fucking game into that, I'm really, really glad my brother was the only one dumb enough to buy the game. I would be pissed.
We'll see. You know how they're going to deliver that, though, right? Because eventually you're going to run out of quests. So who they're going to give the quest from? Factions.
Right.
You know, almost every single game from Bethesda has factions, and guess what you get from them? Quests that go kill this or go kill that, right? Don't even get me started on factions.
Well, see, now I do want to get you started on factions for a second, because Obsidian Games is the one who brought the faction system into Bethesda. Bethesda, prior to NV, never had a faction system in any one of its game titles. None of their IPs use faction. There isn't a single one of their IPs that doesn't have them.
And so, and the thing is, like, okay, take Fallout New Vegas, for example, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So I thought the game's 4 different routes would be a return to the choice. You know, you had Mr. House, you had Mr. Yes, and then you had the cannibal looking, cannibal guys and stuff like that. Those are all factions, right? Would be, I thought that it would be a return of the choice and morality of Fallout New Vegas's main quest pass and faction system. There, your allegiances impacted quest options, perhaps sealing off an entire quest lines, and they affected who attacked you in the Mojave Wasteland. But no, Fallout 4, the factions are all mostly identical, giving you virtually the same quote-unquote radiant quests. And because Bethesda no longer wants any content to be locked out, you can literally work with all of the factions until the end, where the game hits you over the head with the fact that the choice is final this time. No subtlety at all.
Wow. Well, I mean, to be fair, they did that in Fallout 3 too. You get the choice of nuking the Brotherhood of Steel or nuking the presidential carrier.
Right, but I mean, at least it was subtle with it.
Well,
you didn't know until you got deeper in. It's like, oh, you know what? Then it was just like a little letdown. No, Fallout 4, you could pinpoint that a mile away. Like, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I bet. No, I agree with you. Please continue.
Yeah, so take, for instance, there's one quest before the choice where all of the factions have this massive battle in one location, right? Okay, they all think you're on their side. It doesn't matter who you kill. It does not matter. They all forgive you immediately under the pretense that the battle was too chaotic to know what's going on.
First off, bullshit. Second off, that's dumb.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Otherwise... Yeah,
you're dumb. You're really, really dumb.
You could literally stand there and not hit anyone and let all the NPCs fight it out. They'll never touch you. It doesn't matter. All those 4 paths play out the same way.
Will you actually complete the quest if you just stand there and let them kill each other?
Yes.
That's okay. That's lovely. Good job, Bethesda. Well done.
So it's like you have to nuke all the other factions. It's an illusion of choice, and it's lazy. It's almost like Bethesda had an internal conflict, and the discussion was pretty much like this: how do we want the game to end? The player just has to kill everyone that isn't their faction. For each quest line, yep, ship it. We're done here. So so I mean, Fallout 4 continues this annoying trend where every faction makes you their leader, right? When you finish their quest line, even though it makes no sense.
Yeah.
Like, why is the grimy post-apocalyptic wanderer allowed to be the head of the super high-tech sterile institute?
Because you have a high science score and very high intellect?
Well, maybe that's a role if you have a maxed out science skill, but no. They'll take any chump to lead them into the future, apparently.
Wait, what? No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You know, even none of the look. So check it out, right? Even none of the Institute scientist NPCs buy it, so it's stupid. Like they'll shame you, like they'll turn their nose up at you. It's like chose you as a leader. Why you're all dirty, you know? And like
they still follow your orders.
yeah, and
See, like that was the thing. Like I've heard a lot of negative about the fact that you can be in every guild in Elder Scrolls, but in order to join them, you have to do specific things. Like you have to at least use a magic spell to join the mages. You have to be able to prove to them you can do magic at least. This sounds like you don't even have to do anything. You're like, what's that glass thing? Is that a cup? No, that's a beaker. What doesn't matter? Okay, I'm gonna drink this. That's acid. What's acid? Doesn't matter. Okay, glug glug glug.
Well, no, it works in the same context as well. Like Skyrim, it's silly that one person can be the Archmage of the College of Mages, right? The leader of the Thieves Guild, a werewolf companion, the leader of the Dark Brotherhood Assassins, and also the Dragonborn. Maybe a vampire, too. It's all too convenient. It's supposed to be role-playing, not jack-of-all-trades playing.
A slight pushback to that. You're talking about hours and hours of storyline to become the Grandmaster in any one thing. And the payoff is very, 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 very minor. I get your point in the fact ridiculous that you can be a member of the Thieves Guild and a member of the Companions. Like I get that. I do. It's more along the lines of what I was saying earlier, where your character starts off as any other. And this is my major bitch with Skyrim is the Dragonborn itself.
Right.
Because Skyrim specifically is the very first time where you ever have a character who has Imperial. Period. I don't mean Imperial blood as in you're an Imperial. I mean Imperial blood. You are of part of what's left from the gift that the dragon god of time Akatai gave unto humanity and his chosen avatar, who created the second empire in the second age. Like that's my major issue. The fact that you can be an overachieving like top 1%er that is the head of multiple Fortune 500 companies, that makes sense. Honestly, it does.
I would do it just for the storyline. But, you know, when it comes to, like, investing time, effort, and energy in a character creation, you know, you're supposed to specialize, and that's why when these games come out, they're expected to play it multiple times through with different characters to experience that different quest line while specializing, right?
See, I think that this is an IP issue because the Bethesda test community does the playthroughs. They really don't. The average test gamer likes making a character and wants to play everything in the game with that character. They don't want to start back over again because it's 1,000 hours to clean the game.
Okay,
so you don't want to make a thief and then make a wizard. You want to make a spell blade, actually, since you're a D&D gamer, you know what I'm talking about there.
Yeah. You know, so then why not make the game open source and allow everyone to test it for themselves then?
Because it was to the modding community prior to the Creation Club, where mods now cost.
No, I mean as a consumer, if you can make a character that specializes in everything, why not just have it open source? Because then at that point, you're essentially a tester, right?
Well, but and what reason would they have to repackage Skyrim 7 times?
Oh yeah, don't even get me started on that one.
Yeah, I know.
Like not only do they repackage it, but they port it over everywhere.
Oh yeah, no. There's been 7 re-releases of Skyrim. I'm not amused. Especially with the free special edition that they gave to anyone who bought any version of Skyrim.
Tell me about it. Like, and they didn't even wait for people to like download them, and it just appeared in their library one day. Like it's like the random result of some freaky creepypasta that, you know, like Sonic.exe came to your computer and be like, here's a special version of Skyrim. You know? And it's like, I look like, wait, why do I have 2 copies of Skyrim? And all of a sudden, and you know, and instead of seeing that special edition, you see Short Bus Window Licker edition.
Yep.
Because it's special.
Well, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, the SKSE, the Skyrim script extender, used to be free, along with Sky UI and the unofficial Skyrim patch. Those all now cost money with the Game of the Year edition, which is the only game with air quotes support, and that pisses me. Not Game of the Year, special edition, excuse me, and that's thoroughly infuriating. Again, I'm going to bring up the fact I should not have to pay for you to patch your game. That's dumb. There is not a final working patch of Morrowind. There's not a final working patch of Oblivion. You just go on the Nexus and download the freaking unofficial patch. You know, that's not going to exist in elsewhere. I really don't. I know I'm not going to fix the College of Winterhold quest like I did in Skyrim. I don't see a fucking reason to. You know, screw you. You're going to steal my code, and I'm not going to get paid for it. So why should I fix it? Someone else can go spend hours of their time to do.
Right, and we got about a half an hour left for this, and so like, okay, so like, say for Fallout 4 again, right? Mm-hmm. You know, I got pretty involved with the settlement building mechanics, you know, because I like that. I like base building. Anyone who knows me in a video game knows that once I get the mechanics down for base building, I'm the fastest base building robot you're ever going to see. Mm-hmm. You know, and I enjoyed it, right? It was good, relaxing time to building a compound that could store power armor on Spectacle Island. But even that had its limitations on what I would call a poor apology for the lack of diversity in questing.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really... Like, base building makes sense when you're playing, let's say. I don't know how many people here are Rust players, but Rust is a hardcore survival...
Oh yeah, I play it.
Okay. In that, base building absolutely matters. In Fallout 4 and 76, it's an aesthetic. You know, what kind of snazzy house do you want to take screenshots of?
It's like the Fallout 4 version of Pokemon, and you're capturing people.
Yeah, that's a pretty good analogy. I like it.
You know, but you know, reality, Fallout 4 had to date Bethesda's best world to explore. The map was varied. Downtown Boston actually felt like a real city. Right? There were beaches, swamplands, small towns. You know, the mystery of the severely underutilized glow. You know, and don't get me started on Nuka World. That place was freaking awesome. Okay. Nuka World was awesome. I spent hours exploring that. It was exactly the kind of area I wanted to explore in an expansion, even if the main scenarios also fell flat and didn't feel fleshed out.
Yeah.
You know, so like the Fallout 4 building interiors in those were also distinct and interesting to comb through. Though, like I said, chest placement was always a little obvious. You know, Fallout's, you know, retro future art style blossomed in this next-gen iteration. You know, there were plenty of surprises, too, if you looked hard enough. But I would say that the exploration aspect is what really kept me going through Fallout 4. Because, I mean, when they introduced the base building, I got excited. I legitimately got excited. Right? And then I was severely, legitimately disappointed. It's like, yeah, I can get all these components, you know, break everything down, build a base, and why can't I just cover this entire town with my masterpiece like it showed me in the goddamn trailer? You know?
Yeah, no, I know. I know what you mean, because one of the things that I find that is a major turnoff in most games is you are limited in your construction size. And most places get away with it, like Path of Exile gets away with it because you're limited in the size of your hideout, so you can only put so many things in there, and you can expand that through doing, reputation grinding kind of. But, it's mostly just a place for you to have your personal chest and the things you want to display. Whereas it doesn't serve an actual combat fun. And I think that's part of why the base building in Fallout 4, while it was fun, that was the part that I got lost in the most. Because I sat there and was fiddling around on Arctic's Xbox with that, and I just got lost in the base building. Hands down, I built a nice little fort. No one came and attacked it. I was sad. I went home.
I know. I spent time building turrets around the city because they said that there was the threat of bandits and stuff like that. Nobody ever came by. So I was just all that building the generators and stuff. But I mean, ultimately things got worse, right? Worse than I was afraid of during the E3 announcement. Fallout 76 is a broken mess. And it's not even on a technical level, which it clearly is, and in theory could be improved. But Fallout 76 overall is a broken mess from basic design standpoints. The very foundation of the gameplay just doesn't work. It's a failed experiment where the mechanics don't mesh well together at all.
Agreed.
In order for them to work, they would either need to be scrapped or heavily changed. And right now, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't see a way for them to put the toothpaste back in the tube with this.
Right, and don't even get me started on the technical issues, or as Bethesda likes to call them, features. You have the perception of bugs and glitches in Bethesda Game Studio projects, and Bethesda games have always been buggy. I know it, you know it.
Oh, yeah.
Bethesda knows it. The bugs have ranged from small things like, clipping NPCs to enemies launching straight in the air for no reason, to dragons flying backwards. It's literally impossible to list them all, right? So there, and then there's the incompletable quest, and I don't know about you, but anytime that I tried to load up Fallout 3 on Steam, just because it was ported over, it would crash 30 minutes in. Couldn't even do anything, and it made one of my streams completely unwatchable and everything because it just kept crashing. I once got stuck in a water purifier in Fallout 3 and couldn't get out because I didn't have a recent save. I was so angry, I stayed away from the game for a week.
Ouch. Yeah. No, I absolutely know what you mean. One of the things that would drive me insane is that whenever I'd start a Fallout 3 character, I'd immediately run down to Operation, and there's still, to this day, there's a known bug with Fallout, where if you go as you go down to the entrance to the bunker with the particular DLC, there's a set of super mutants there. And there will be one that sometimes gets stuck in a wall but can still shoot you. So it's immune to anything you do, but it's accurate as... And there's been multiple times where I'm just running along dead.
Yeah.
That is fucking frustrating. I hear you there. I absolutely do.
Yeah, and at some point, realistically, the perception of the bugs with Bethesda got flipped. Before the bugs, the instability was just something everyone put up with because the games were that good. They were so good with the storyline, and if you could manage to get through those bugs, it was worth it in the end.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, for the majority of the people I've interacted with in the Bethesda game community, myself, we went for the story and fixed their coding because they were shitty game makers, but they were awesome story.
Oh, yeah. And it was... like Skyrim, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't take much to break completely. But we all dealt with it because we understood the unique complexity and the world and stories, the exploration, the adventure the game offered. At the same time, though, Bethesda games are getting less complex, as described, previously, without adding some fresh ideas, all the while generally not more polished than their predecessors. There's even a joke going around that Fallout 4 is more like Fallout 3.5. Play on words for D&D right there. You know, so that's the perception of the game, and even I think it does a disservice to Fallout 3.
Oh yeah, I mean, Fallout 3 was genuinely innovative. It really was. And the experience of playing Fallout 3 is such that I still go back and fuck. I love that world. I love the feelings I had there, and just wait, what? I can see this in 3D. Wait, what?
Yeah.
I can play this first person. Yeah, and shit. This is the Fallout universe, but done in high res. This is amazing. Let me load fucking 4K textures now. Oh my god, this is great. You know, I definitely hear you there. I definitely. I'm not gonna point out that you're wrong at all, because you're really not. Fallout 3 is an amazing product.
Right, and at some point in time, there was a connect between Bethesda and the player base, because they flipped the perception. You know, now you seem to have this "hey, people love our bugs and technical problems" attitude. No, Bethesda, you're misunderstanding your audience. We loved your games and put up with your bugs and technical problems. There's a huge difference. Yeah. If a game isn't compelling to play in the first place and has systems that clash with each other, why would anyone put up with crashing constantly, enemies ice skating around in T-poses, and character models stuck in power armor?
Yeah.
You know, and so here's the thing with Fallout 76, right? So Bethesda insisted that you can play the game solo. And that's technically true. Technically. Except you'll see other people. Whether they're doing the same quest as you, looting the same containers, or just walking around. You know, you'll see other players. You can see all 23 players on your map, and the map is big enough, 4 times as large as Fallout 4. And it's entirely possible you won't run into anyone else, though. Fallout 76 doesn't offer any real reason for you to interact with other people. All loot is individualized, so you're not fighting with other people over resources. You know, you might essentially team up and complete public events that spawn, but that's about it. You can emote and wave at each other. Oh, good, look, another Fortnite. You know, but, you know, and there's proximity chat. You know, and you can trade. So if you're playing solo, your experience is boiled down to just seeing other players. Why does the game need to be online? If the servers aren't working and you have no intention of using any multiplayer features, it sucks to be you and you can't play either.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's one of the things that really, really bothers me. I mean, again, to compare this to, there are Rust vendors. There are people who will sit there and sell items all day long, like an actual NPC vendor, which is what Bethesda was trying to set up. Here's the thing.
I was one of those people.
Well, okay. Then, okay, by comparison, how many Rust players can you have in a single server?
That depends on the server size. I think the smallest I seen was 20, and the largest I saw was, I want to say 300.
Okay, so the smallest it gets is about the size of the Fallout 76 player maximum.
And the world's like 100 times bigger.
Yeah. That's part of what I'm getting at, is the fact that part of the reason why Rust works the way it does, and it actually succeeds in this, is the fact that you can sit there and vendor all damn day long. And you can have a good experience there doing that. Just sitting there and being a clerk. You can't do that in 76. I mean, why would you?
Right. Right. And while, you know, earlier it insisted that you could play the game solo, Bethesda insists that the game is multiplayer.
Oh, God.
Right?
Yeah.
But again, there's no real reason to play with others. Sure, teaming up with friends, you know, will make taking down bullet sponge enemies easier. Yeah, they are bullet sponges. Let's look at it realistically.
Oh yeah, dude.
You know,
I have a free CD key access that I got to 76, and I have and take that many bullets to the fucking brain pan and not care. How many ghouls in 4 can you shoot in the head and they don't care? What? How does that work? Exactly. Is there anything up there that matters, or is that just an extra appendix? Ugh. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Well, I mean, part of how that works and what I think they were going for is that if you set up a base with your friends, then what you're doing is you're building like a clan base, and you're supposed to have your own independent base as well. Here's the problem: your base has degradation like growth. So you'd have to support it with your own crap, and you'd have to support your clan base with your own stuff. Oh, that pisses me off so fucking bad. I won't let you talk. I'm about to rage. Go. Well, I mean, what their PvP system has done has made it to the point where you can completely ignore stealth characters. They don't matter at all. You know, that high-end stealth character that you were worried about with that massive scope, so that way you could just snipe shit from long away. Well, that doesn't matter. They actually have to hit you. Returning fire doesn't count. They physically have to hit you for that handshake to work. So there is no PvP in effect. It's a very, you said gentlemanly, and that's correct. You know, let's go meet here at noon, and then we'll walk 6 paces from each other's back and shoot. That's, yep. Mhm. Yep. Yeah, well, the thing that drives me crazy about their survival mechanic is not only do weapons degrade over time, not even using them, just having them in your inventory. So if you put it in storage, it won't degrade. But if you have, like, let's say a pipe pistol on you, it'll slowly get damaged over time. Also, the sheer volume of food and water that you will eat and drink is unrealistic, even for hyper survival games. You don't consume that much in a 24-hour period because 24-hour periods are marked by the night and day schedule. It's fucking annoying.
see if this fixes it. Okay, here we go. This should be working now. Apparently, my microphone has this mind of its own, right? Apparently, my voice is so powerful that it just doesn't want to work anymore. And so it'll be like I'm shutting down. I'm busting a nut all over the place, and I can't handle it. I'm just gonna shut down.
I see. So your James Earl Jones voice has sent your microphone into G.
Yeah. It's like I Morgan Freeman all over this microphone, and now it doesn't want to work.
God damn.
It's like, and little did he know that the microphone would no longer work because its electronics has all been scrambled due to the orgasm.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know at what point in time they, that they stopped hearing me rant. But like Bethesda Game Studios, right? They've been attempting to do damage control for Fallout 76. So from the moment they announced the game, last summer, they swore up and down that it's a real Fallout game, only online with other, characters or other players, right? But by trying to conform the mechanics of Bethesda Fallouts into an always online context, nothing works.
Yeah.
It may look like Fallout at first glance, but it sure as hell isn't a good Fallout.
I on that point, I have to agree. It looks like a Fallout, and it looks really good when it's working, but it doesn't play like at all. And the Skyrim dragons, the Scorch Beast monster pissed me off to no end. Like, there's fucking dragons in Fallout 76. That's infuriating. It's the exact same fucking model. It's just a difference. If you've ever played with the dynamic dragon mod, that's what they're using for the Scorch Beast. Amusingly enough, if you because you can data mine the code because they host it on client side as opposed to server side, you can actually go through the INI files and see what the SKSE code from dynamic. Fucking annoying.
I think we kind of lost you there for a moment because you kind of cut out. I don't know if it's your weather or whatnot, or...
we're in the middle of a really, really hefty weather event here, so it's a little spotty.
Maybe it's a nuclear winter. I'm sorry, that was a really bad joke.
Yeah, I know. I was trying not to just groan and die a bit on the inside, so I'm just gonna ignore that.
Well, it's okay. We can rant and rave about the VAT system.
Oh man, the fucking fuck.
The
VAT system's been a bastard child since they ever introduced it.
Well, I mean, for Fallout 76, yeah, sure. I mean, the system was meant to evoke the turn-based nature of classic Fallout's combat that allows you to target enemies in their specific body parts, right?
Right. That's this entire point. The main use of it, for me, exclusively, was the fucking handmade paintball dart gun thing that destroys a limb if you hit a limb.
Oh, it does like 5,000 damage if you target a limb with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a dart gun. I had loved that because you went like that little. It didn't have any like explosive gunshots or anything. It just went.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, no. I mean, I understood why they put it in because they were under severe pressure from the Fallout community to keep it turned. I get that. I don't fucking understand why it exists in a multiplayer game that cannot be, because if things keep moving, you can't use the VAT systems for its original intention. I don't know. I bet you it's the same. But
Sorry to interrupt, but you keep cutting in and out, and but basically what you're getting is VATS and Fallout 76 just equals an aimbot.
Yeah.
It's almost always jarring instead, especially because the percentages to hit specific body parts can rapidly roll as the enemy moves. Right? It's just easier to shoot manually. It's a bastardization of VATS that doesn't work, and it shouldn't have even been included in 76.
Yeah. No, I agree. There's no reason for it to be in a multiplayer non-pause. You don't need to have the turn-based system there.
Right. And then there's the same problem with the Pip-Boy, right? The game's inventory, stats, quest notes, everything else UI. Modern Fallout's pulling up your wrist-attached computer, or the Pip-Boy, pauses time as the interface fills your entire screen, right? In 76, it can't pause the world because it's online.
Yeah.
You might be trying to get use items to heal up or buff while you're getting mauled by Mirelurks, or even more likely trying to drop items so you're not over encumbered to let you actually run away from whatever it is ripping you to pieces.
Well, and the thing that's fucked up is about the Pip-Boy user interface. Other ZeniMax products that are online, Elder Scrolls, you're allowed to UI mod as much as you fucking. If you want to change the way that shit sits, you can mod that to your heart's content. They've banned accounts for fixing the UI crap that is the Pip-Boy.
Yeah.
You can't sort that by weight. You can't sort by size. You can't sort by. You can't sort. You can't sort. You can't fucking arg.
Right. We're getting 4 minutes till the end of this, so we didn't even cover all the stuff that I wanted to cover too. So much to gripe and complain about, man.
Well, but at least if nothing else, our very first episode, base history of Bethesda, the base starting point for ZeniMax, and their catalog history, and some major differences as we've shot the shit and griped about the fucking problems with it. So realistically, I think it's been a pretty good pilot episode. Yeah,
and apparently got a donation because Matt Odge decided to lose a bet. Which, I guess it works out in my favor. I don't know what the bet was, but I got money out of it, and I didn't even know. Cool.
That's fantastic, isn't it? Getting paid for not doing anything.
Definitely pray, Doug.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So basically, go ahead and let everyone know where they can reach you when you do your streaming.
Well, let's see. My username is Maestro Theranthropy, which is also, my channel name. The best place to reach me would be on Stream, which allows for anon accounts. So you can make anonymous accounts. So you don't even have to create an account. You can just use it as guest, as an anon, and you can engage in chat, and you can leave comments. So I prefer it. Stream.me is much like myself. They are a free speech absolutist platform. As long as you're not inciting or committing criminal acts, you're pretty much allowed. And yeah, come check me out. Thanks.
I think that's the first time I heard you say, the full name. And I have trouble pronouncing Miastra. If you asked me to pronounce your full name, I'd be like,
it's Latin. I'm sorry.
And just leave it at that. I'd be like, nope, I'm correct. I'm walking away from this.
I went for universal branding because I've almost managed to lock down my Astra, but unfortunately I couldn't get it on Google Plus, which meant I couldn't get it on YouTube, and I just made the branding Theranthropy. That's Latin for shape change, and it's ambiguous. For example, lycanthropy means wolf.
Yeah, all that I know, but can you tell me the Latin for that's too freaking long?
No.
It's probably the shortest word in Latin too.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, ultimately, I mean, I thought this was pretty successful. I mean, people know where to reach me. All my links are down below. I'm actually going to throw his links in there as well, so that way you can catch, I believe you, stream Warframe a lot?
Yeah, no, Monday through Saturday, I do a morning show from 9 Central to, and it is a Let's Play Warframe morning show. Unfortunately, my co-host computer took a shit, so it's pretty much one of the only games that he likes to play that he can stream. So it's pretty exclusively Warframe, but I stream everywhere. That's really the only fixed place and time that 9 to noon, I'll be streaming Warframe Let's Plays.
Well, remember, computers, if you plan on taking a shit, be sure to have your fiber. I've seen so many computers take a crap, and it turns out that they were constipated. So,
yeah. No, I actually had something very similar with my machine where I thought I was taking a crap until I took it apart and realized that I hadn't actually cleaned out the heatsink in a year and it was clogged.
Oh, that's got to be the worst.
It was. It ached like that cake weird rabbit dust shit that gets in between fins on a heatsink is fun to try to scrape the hell out with the tooth. Like, get out of there, you little bastard. But yeah, no, I mean, I definitely agree with you there. It's like, oh, why isn't my RAM working? What happened? Oh, you put them in side-by-side DIMMs, dumbass. That's why your computer took a... Oops.
Make sure it's offset as you're pounding his face in.
Pretty much, yeah.
So, I mean, but ultimately, I think this was pretty successful. So the entire time I've had the whole PewDiePie versus T-Series thing up, right? And they're really... They're almost neck and neck now. Like, I don't even think Fortnite saved PewDiePie, and he went back on his word. But yeah, I mean, we have the option where people can donate as well if they want to show a little bit of love for the new and upcoming podcast. Well, actually, when we get the brand account solidified with all sorts of artwork and stuff, we're actually going to be moving a podcast to there. So be sure to follow me on Twitter to keep an update to that. So that way you're not missing a podcast, because let's face it, tech and video games, that's our thing. Also, bitching about random shit, that's our thing too. We just decided to mix the two together. You know, and hopefully I'll never have to pronounce his last name. But, you know, ultimately, we appreciate everyone coming out. You know, right now, Ferret's the big dog in the house with the largest donation. You know, so it's always nice to get a little competition going in there. But yeah, if you like the podcast, please like, subscribe, you know, all that good stuff. For like, I believe the next hour after it uploads, I'm actually going to be looking at comments and answering them. So, I mean, feel free to do that. If you have any suggestions or feedback, please let me know as well. Discord link is down there below as well. All the other stuff that is necessary is down there. We both hope that you have a wonderful night, and remember, don't do the Fallout 76 thing.
Yeah, don't. It's not worth your money, and it's not worth the aggravation. As I said, I have a free key, and I pay too much.
Right, and that was time and effort of your life wasted. But the next frame that's going to come by, it's going to list a... And, you know, if you have a need to sleep, but you can't, and apparently my voice isn't cutting it for you, the next music coming up should do it for you. So, hope you enjoy for the next few minutes.